what is the Japanese concept of truth? And when you say the gospel is the truth, how is that received in Japanese culture?
Yeah, truth is more fluid in Japan. And so the way that religions have kind of become part of Japan is really amazing at taking something that's not Japanese and making it Japanese. So kind of importing something and taking it apart and rebuilding it. So this is like how Toyota got started. It's like importing American cars, taking them apart, rebuilding them, but making at least one improvement that makes them better when they build them the next time. And so it's this idea of like Kaizen or incremental progress, like making things a little bit better along the way. And so there's a similar mindset for like religion. So like Buddhism came in, and one of the reasons that Buddhism was kind of successful was that it was integrated into the Shinto system that was already there. And Confucianism came in and provided a philosophical backing for these things and philosophical structure. And so, your average person is heavily influenced by Confucian thought, but they don't know it. It's not like they're self-consciously Confucianist, it's just there. They take part in Shinto and they take part in Buddhist rituals, but they're not religious. Because religion is kind of a faux pas, and it's kind of this absolute thing that you're supposed to do. And that really comes a lot from like Christian missionary influence, where Christianity is something that early on it was like, okay, sure, we want to bring this in, but we want to make some modifications. Those 10 Commandments. This is like the Jesuit mission. One of the experiences that the priest had is they were, these early missionaries, they were sharing the gospel with daimyo, with the head samurai. And the samurai were like, I really like this, except for that commandment about the whole adultery thing. They're like, could you adjust that one? And then I'll convert. And these, they took a stand and they didn't. And that's...
So the concept of the exclusivity of truth would not be natural to someone in Japan.
Those categories aren't really used. Yeah. So, but what you're getting at is the way that things are.
So talk about how that culture then sculpts the way you do evangelism.
Yeah. Well, it makes relationship, absolutely crucial. So normally for someone to come to Christ in Japan, if they're not like overseas in like a new kind of setting or experience, it usually takes years. Great story is we used to run a cafe, like outreach ministry that was really focused on evangelism. And we would just do events. It was really like a community building opportunity. And one of our missionaries met this young barista at Starbucks. And it was really a sweet story because this missionary was really struggling to speak Japanese and struggling to make connections. She wanted to be able to share the gospel, but didn't really have relations. And she's like, you know what? I'm just going to go to the same Starbucks every week to study my Japanese. And just prayed, Lord, will you help me meet somebody? And she ended up meeting one of the baristas who came up. She's like, oh, you're studying English, or sorry, you're studying Japanese. I want to study English. And so they started doing some kind of language exchange and built a friendship. And so this missionary invited her to come to our cafe ministry and to take part in that. And so this young gal came and she started coming to the cafe events, open mic night or English cafe night or these kinds of things. And then she became a regular at the cafe. She'd come kind of whenever she had free time. And it was really funny because, a couple of people were like, I'd like to invite her to church, but I don't know if she'll be okay. And finally, this missionary said like, hey, do you want to come to church with me? And this young Japanese girl was kind of like, well, yes, I was kind of waiting for you to ask. And it's because she was in this like community of Christians who had all become her friends. And she started to observe that these people who she liked being around more than anyone else in the world all had something in common. And it was Jesus. But even with that being the case, so she started going to this church. It was a church that CBI helped to start. And she's going to this church every week. She went, almost every week for years before she finally actually said like, okay, I want to get baptized. And people would ask her, they're like, do you want to become a Christian? Do you want to follow Christ in this way? And she goes, well, I believe in Jesus, but I can't get baptized because I'm Japanese. And so there's this, real distinction in those ways and of like a private faith, but a fear of allowing it to impact your outer person.